Hello, this is Pavel, and this is Tuesday's operating brief, where I take AI and technology signal and look at what they change for service companies. Let's get started. MIT reports that 90% of enterprise AI pilots in 2025 delivered zero measurable P&L impact, and McKinsey found that companies that did see return were about twice more likely to redesign end-to-end workflows before they ever choose a model. A recent CEO advisory calls this the fork in the road. One path uses AI mainly to cut headcount and squeezes the quarterly P&L. The other uses AI to augment people and build capabilities competitors can't easily copy. Both paths move numbers in the short term, but they lead to very different companies 3 years from now. A leaner version of your old business or a business that runs in fundamentally better way. For a service company, that fork often shows up in one decision. Do we spend this year AI budget on selective layoffs and licenses? Or do we spend it redesigning one of two core workflows, intake, scheduling, billing, claims, so they are instrumented, repeatable, and ready for AI to take them better every month? When you look at your current AI plans, are you quietly taking the cost extraction path by default? Or have you explicitly choosing one or two places where AI will help you build a capacity your competitors won't have yet? BCG and IBM both land a sharp gap. Around 90% of CEOs believe AI will deliver measurable ROI, but only about 29% of executives can confidently measure those returns. And only roughly 16% have scaled AI initiatives enterprise wise. Google Cloud adds another spread. Two performance reportedly generated about $10 in value for every $1 invested in AI, while the average is close to 370. The difference isn't a secret model. It is the leaders stop measuring usage, tokens, prompts, chats, and start measuring outcomes. Cost per accepted quote, cost per clean invoice, time to resolve a ticket, revenue from campaign AI actually helped close. For a service company, that means every AI experiment should start with three basics: a baseline before you turn it on, a clear outcome metrics the business cares about, and time horizon long enough for the metric to move. If you pulled up your AI spend from the last quarter, could you explain in dollars per accepted result what the money bought you? Or would you still be pointing to a busy dashboard and hoping the value isn't there somewhere? MIT Sloan's work on agentic AI puts a hard number on something operators feel. About 80% of the work in deployment that actually stick is data engineering, stakeholder alignment, governance, and workflow integration, not prompt tuning. Tesla runs into the same wall in a very different context. The network inventory was only 50 to 60% accurate, which means all of the autonomy levels and clever logic on top were guessing about the real world. For the service company, the pattern is the same. The model isn't your bottleneck. The bottleneck is whether your systems, data, and handoffs reflects how work really happens, where a job starts, who decides, what exceptions look like, and where information currently evaporates into notebooks and inboxes. The upside is that you don't need a research lab to close this gap. You need to pick one core workflow, clean up the data it depends, make the steps and owner explicitly, and then let AI raise the floor on the better version. If you drop AI assistance into your intake, scheduling, or billing flows tomorrow, would it be working off real information or the 50-60% version of your business that lives in your systems today? Moving on. RSM's latest cyber report shows a familiar pattern. 97% of middle market executives says they are confident in their security posture. Yet about 1 of 5 of those firms were hit by ransomware in the last year. A separate Nitrio survey finds 82% of companies already use an AI in production, but only 26% says it's scaled and governed enterprise-wide. In other words, AI is already working inside the business, whether leadership has a clear handle on it or not, and confidence in its policies and tools is running far ahead or actual visibility and control. For a service company, the risk isn't that few people are passing into chat, is that agents and automations are reading customer data, sending messages, or moving money without anyone being able to pull a single page that shows where, how, and under whose authority. If your board asks tomorrow for one-page inventory of every place AI is in production, what data it can touch, and who can shut it off, could your team produce it? Or would you discover in the process that shadow AI has already become part of your run? In the next news, at the recent Fortune Global Network, NTT Data CEO Abhijit Dubey gave simple advice about AI that mid-sized service firms can safely steal. Pick 1 or 2 domains that are going to create disproportional economic value for your company and go end to end. His warning was the flip side. Trying to unleash AI in every domain at once feel ambitious, but quietly guarantees shallow wins and stalled pilot. For the service company, that should be freeing. You don't need an AI story for every part of the business. You need 1 or 2 places, claims, dispatch, collections, renewal, where you are willing to rework the entire flow. From first touch to cash in the bank, with AI wired in on purpose. That's also where your size is an advantage. A single P&L owner, a few systems, and the people who live the work every day can sit in one room and decide what end-to-end really looks like. If you had to name just one domain, where a step change in speed and quality would matter most this year, what would it be? And what would it take to rebuild the flow all the way through instead of sprinkling AI across 10 others? IBM's AI ROI study makes a blunt point. The primary challenge is not a technology problem, it is an organizational one. And they estimate that paying down technical debt and legacy systems can improve AI ROI by up to 29%. In practice, that debt looks like that most service companies live with every day. Duplicated systems, half-migrated data, manual reconciliations, and workarounds that only the longer service staff remember. Drop AI on the top of that, and you don't magically get efficiency. You get faster momentum through the same maze with the added cost and risk of tools nobody fully understands. For the mid-size service company, that means some of the best AI money will ever spend won't have AI on the invoice at all. It will be getting one customer master, one job list, one billing flow, and one source of truth your people is future AI can both rely on. Looking at your own backlog, what's one piece of operational or technical debt you could clear this year that would make every future AI workflow cheaper and more reliable instead of just faster cows? MIT again. MIT Sloan has started talking about AI factors instead of AI projects. Platforms, methods, data, and past algorithms that make every new AI system cheaper and faster to start up. In the same breath, they point out that in around 38% of big companies, nobody can agree who AI should ever report to, which is why impressive pilots so rarely turn into repeatable ways to working. For service company, you don't need a lab to steal the factory idea. You need 3 habits. One small, stable set of tools everyone builds on instead of different stack for every new idea. A single up-to-date picture of how key workflows really run and where data is created, not just what it's on org chart. A rule that every successful AI use case become the pattern for the next one, not the one-off hero experiment. When those are in place, each new workflow, intake, quoting, scheduling, billing gets faster and cheaper to stand up because you're reusing patterns instead of starting from scratch. If you walked around your own business today and ask, where do you see those 3 habits already? And what is missing? What would you find? Next one is a big one. In one widely shared case, Vercel reportedly moved from a 10-person inbound sales team to one human overseeing an AI-driven agent that handles qualification, research, drafting, and routing. The interesting part isn't the headcount change, is what made the agent usable at all. They built a workbench around it, clear sources, a limited set of tools, a defined handoff in Slack, and review loop, and then discovered deleting about 80% of the tools they given to agent actually made it better. The builder who wrote this story breaks maintenance into several surfaces. The agent's job, its data diet, its memory, its tools, its reach, its proof, and its value. Let's any of these drifts and the same agent that impressed you in a demo quietly start creating messes instead of value. For a service company, that's real management load. Once an AI workflow is doing real work, somehow has to audit recent runs, strip out unused tools, tighten what data is seen, and decides whether it is still earning its place. If you are looked at the AI workflow, you already have it in place today. Who is actually responsible for that workbench? And when was the last time anyone reviewed that the agents followed to it, touch, and change? A Columbia Business School and BCG surveys of 1,400 US employees found something every leader should sit with. Around 80% of executives believed employees felt informed about their company's AI strategy, but only 29% of individual contributors agreed. That's a huge gap to hide behind green, training, dashboard, and a sideware. For a service company, AI readiness isn't how many people attended in a workshop or clicked through a prompt tutorial. It's whether the people doing the work understand what will change in their day, what won't, where AI is allowed to act, and how issues will be caught and escalated. If they don't trust that story or can't repeat it in their own words, they will root around your AI just like they root around any system that feels risky and confusing. Looking at your own rollout plans, do your teams have a clear human version of AI strategy that explains what's changing in their workflow, how success will be measured, and what happens when something goes wrong? Or are you assuming that one all hands off and training link were enough? GRC and audit teams are starting to use a new phase for where they need to get to agent ready. In their world, that doesn't mean more AI policies. It means they can prove 4 things at the moment. The data agent sees as trustworthy, the permissions they hold are narrow and short lived, there is an evidence trail for what they did, and real people with the right skills know how to respond when something goes wrong. For a service company, agent ready is simply audit ready for AI. If an agent can change data, send messages, or move money, it should be able to answer 2 questions with evidence, not opinions. Who approved that authority? And how do we know it stays inside the rules? That's a higher bar than having a vendor side desk and once a year risk review. But it's also what lets you move faster without losing sleep. If you picked one AI workflow in your business today, could you show in one page its data sources, permissions, log, and escalation path? Or would you discover that we trust the tool is doing more work than it should? MIT's CISR research on data monetization found a simple gap. High performing organizations report that money made from their data accounts for roughly 10% more of the overall revenue than low performing peers. They don't get this by selling dashboards. They get there three ways: using data to improve how work runs, cheaper, faster, fewer errors, wrapping the core services with data powered features customer will pay a bit more for, and in a smaller set of cases, selling information solutions outright. For a service company, that might look like using job data to cut unbilled overtime, giving owners a clean monthly report that shows proactive maintenance moves, or turning your insight about recurring issues into paid advisory add-on instead of free advice. The point isn't to launch a separate data product. It is to stop leaving the value from the data your operation already generate on the table. If you look at one of your core services and ask, where does the data we create here actually change money? Either by cutting costs, raising price, or opening in new line items, what would you find and what is missing? That's it for today's brief, and I'll talk to you